Thank you. Our phone line's open. Now, who do we have on the phone?
Trustee Swan.
Trustee Swan, great to hear your voice.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Trustee Jacobs.
Trustee Jacobs, welcome. And do we have a third one on the line? Okay, I'd like to welcome... Did he just say something? Oh. Welcome everyone to the May 9th, 2018 public session. I'm going to call to order and rise and ask us to stand for the singing of O Canada. Thank you very much. Patty, would like to welcome you tonight. You're joining us to help Lisa. Unfortunately, Lisa's family is going through a rough time, and our condolences goes out to her and especially to Murray and his family during these tough times. So thank you for filling in on that. Director, I'll ask you to do a roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, trustees. This is our roll call for our meeting of 09 May 2018. Trustee Armour. First Vice Chair Karpner.
Present.
Trustee Cram.
Present.
Trustee Jacobs.
Present.
Trustee Winnie McPherson.
I am present.
Trustee Bill McPherson.
Present.
Trustee McAllister.
Present.
Second Vice Chair McDonald.
Present.
Chair McMillan.
Present.
Trustee Richards.
Present.
Trustee Swan.
Present.
Student Trustee Marshall Wilson.
Present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You have quorum.
Thank you very much. I need a motion that the Upper Canada School Board approve a consent item, agenda items 3.02 to 3.03, May the 9th, 2018, as submitted. Moved by Trustee Karpner, seconded by Trustee Richards. Ask you to cast your votes, please. It's not coming up. No, we just have a show. Oh, there it is. We've got it. We've got it. We've got it. Thank you. Thank you, trustees. Trustee McDonald.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Do we have any conflict of interest declarations? Seeing there are none, I'm going to move forward to a report to the board from private session. At its committee of the whole meeting in private session April 25th, 2018, one litigation matter was discussed and no recommendations were brought forward to the board. Okay, moving on to our next item, which is our delegation, our presentation from Central Public School, who's going to go through their improvement plan with us. I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent Mills, who'll do the introduction.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure to invite the Central Public School Administration team to the board table. So through you, Chair, I'd like to introduce Vice Principal Ryan Gove, to my left here, and Principal Carrie Cronwald. They have something in common, very much in common. Mr. Gove has been the Vice Principal for a few months at Central Public, and Mr. Cronwald has been the Principal for a few months at Central Public. But I know you're going to be very impressed with what they're going to bring to the table tonight. Central Public is a school that's rich in history. It's a comprehensive school in the downtown core of Cornwall, a lot of diversity as well. And as you're listening to the presentation tonight, I want you to think about it's Mental Health Week, but it's also Education Week, and you'll hear a number of things related to how the school's working on wellness and equity, but also in bringing programs that are really making a difference for students, especially in the areas of experiential learning. So I'll turn it over to Carrie and Ryan.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Mills, trustees, superintendents. On behalf of students, parents, and staff, it's a great pleasure to represent Central Public School this year. This year has been a historical reflection for us as a school as we've been celebrating our bicentennial year at Central. In September, we hosted an open house where we set up a number of historical displays to showcase the past 200 years in education. This was followed up by themed evenings with our spaghetti dinner and art show. And coming up June 14th, we would like to invite the senior team and trustees to our final celebration, which is our family barbecue. We have a very dedicated staff at Central Public that has made all these events special this year. When you look at our school as a whole, we have a population of 471 students. Of those students, we have 50 ELL learners, English language learners, 4 international students. We have a staff of 57, a school staff with 29 teachers, 12 educational assistants, 3 ELL instructors, 3 office staff, 3 custodians. We're a dual track school. We have 5 kindergarten classes of 3 French immersion and 2 regular program. Grades 1 to 6, we have 7 French immersion classes and 8 regular. Some of our school highlights from this year, our wellness emphasis. We had a grade 6 co-op program that started this year. Zones of regulation is a regular emphasis in our school, as long as Mind Masters. Boys and Girls Club is part of our after-school program. It's a great community partner. We have our Free to Become daycare for before and after. We have school-wide projects that have been really important to our school, which is our annual art show and science fair. Building characters is important to our school at Central. We've had our campaign for kindness this year and spirit assemblies. And assessment focus we had this year really emphasized learning goals, success criteria, and descriptive feedback. When we look at our EQAO data, in grade 3 we had 64 students write, 4 were exempt. We had 5 ELL students. We had 27 students identified with special needs. In grade 6 we had 61 students write, 3 were exempt, 5 ELL students, 26 students identified with special needs. When we looked overall at our attitudinal scores, reflections, it was reasonably positive. We had 90% of the students sometimes or most of the time liking, enjoying reading, writing, and math. So that was a really positive outcome. Overall, we have significant work to do with our reading, writing, and math. And this data is part of what drove our commitment to our CIPSA goals and learning teams. This year we had 2 learning teams. We had a math team made up of 9 teachers and a literacy team made up of 8 teachers. Each team met 3 times per cycle for a total of 18 meetings with the sole purpose of increasing student achievement in both literacy and math. Our learning partner was and is a critical anchor to our learning team, and our staff dedication and improvement to student achievement was tremendous this year. So our CIPSA goal for literacy, so our theory of action was if students use co-constructed success criteria to analyze student work, provide descriptive feedback, and determine next steps for teaching and learning, reading strategies, then student achievement will improve in reading. So we started off our cycle of learning this year with benchmarks with students establishing the baseline of reading, and we worked together as a staff to use those benchmarks to further student reading achievement. We then established a monitoring plan, so we had focused students that we kept track of. And then we use our monitoring plan to determine our next intentional moves for reading for those students. We work together to co-construct learning goals and anticipate success criteria, and to build a deeper learning of descriptive feedback. And then our last part of the cycle, we took what we worked to as a staff, and we were going into classrooms, and we were modeling, practicing, and reflecting as a team within our classrooms.
For math, as Carrie had mentioned, our learning teams have used data from both EQAO and our own school-based diagnostics to help develop our SIPs of focus. We discovered that our students have strengths in foundational numeracy, but struggle with both thinking and application questions that ask them to use critical thinking and problem-solving skills. This really helped us in developing our if-then statement for Cycle 3, which reads, if teachers are using open-ended questions at least 2 times a week and explicitly modeling and teaching problem-solving skills with students, then we will see an increase in achievement in these problem-solving questions. So what we did to help move students along, we modeled different representations for making thinking visible. So concrete, using things like counters and fraction strips. Pictorial, so we had students draw out their thinking. And symbolic, so we had students write down their equation. Not only did we introduce a variety of tools such as grid paper, counters, and number lines, we directly worked with those students on how to use them. We decided to explicitly model problem-solving skills from the curriculum. We have been focusing on how to pull out important information and also focusing on what the question is actually asking us. We worked on making conjectures with reasonable estimates before we start our thinking, and we helped students organize their page. We also committed as a staff to using open-ended questions at least 2 times a week during our 1-hour math blocks. And we intentionally shared specific strategies with our focus students that we felt would help move them to the next step along the numeracy continuum. For our student wellness and student voice, we really tried to implement our co-op program that we've been seeing great success. So our if-then statement for the SIPs was, if we continue implementing our co-op program and measure the impact of the program through surveys for all participating students and teachers, then we should be able to monitor the impact of the program on how it contributes to building a strong sense of community and to the overall wellness in our school. So, as we had mentioned this year, our grade 6 student teachers had started the co-op for grade 6 students. The co-op program has allowed for a variety of opportunities for the grade 6 students to participate in a diverse range of activities in other classrooms and throughout the school. The teachers have observed a significant investment by the students in the program, and we've received positive responses from both the teachers and the students, not only the co-op students, but the ones that the co-op students are working with. This program has had a huge impact in our school in building relationships and a sense of community. Just to review some of the things that Carrie felt we should, and I felt we should highlight to show the outstanding work that's being done at Central Public School. So collaboration through learning teams and SSTs. These are 2 of the biggest change agents at our school. The learning teams focus on academics and now wellness, whereas our SSTs are a collaborative effort to help educate the whole child. Education through 21st century learning is extremely important at Central Public School. We are currently conducting a pilot project in one of our classes in which we have 1-to-1 device student ratio. The results are very encouraging, and speaking with the teachers and the students, both output and engagement is way up. We have also started a coding club to help students. Resource through relationships. So staff at Central is one of our most valuable resources. Having just started and being transferred in February, when I reached out to colleagues to ask what it was like, the first thing everyone said was how great the staff was. And I have to report that having been there, this has definitely held true. Every day our staff come to school, from office staff, custodial staff, support staff, teaching staff. They bring 100% effort to support our students, whether it's cognitively, emotionally, socially, or academically. And finally, wellness through community. Our grade 6 co-op program is currently in action, supporting not only the students, we've also now started to branch out into our community. We have partnered with St. Joseph Continuing Care Center in Cornwall, and we will be conducting an intergenerational learning program in which both our students and the residents there are going to be learning from each other. I want to thank everyone for listening to us today, and we hope to see you all at our barbecue on June 14th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm going to open up the questions and comments. We're going to start off with Trustee McDonald.
Thank you very much. So, very proud of the school. In fact, at one time I was the chair of the school council of Central Public while my son was attending that school. He did his entire elementary career there. That was back before we had 7 to 12 schools, so he was K to 8. Sorry, it was 1 to 8 because they didn't have kindergarten when he went to Central. So one of the things we did at school council was to lobby the then school board to have an opportunity to have kindergarten and early French immersion. And I think you can see the success that Central Public has had having that many kindergarten classes, and even overall just an enrollment of 471. It's tremendous. It is a great school. It's 200 years old this year. I think that's something that we need to be proud of as an organization, not only in the community portal, but as Upper Canada. We hear a lot of celebrations that take place, but certainly this one is an important one, just from a pure symbolic number of being 200 years old. Certainly the number of graduates that have walked through that building. And you might say, well, it's a new school. Well, there's still some of the old school that's still there. And I think that's a unique piece that we can also talk and be proud about in our community, in our greater community of Upper Canada as well. So you heard both these fine gentlemen talk about how new they are to the school. These two gentlemen hit the ground running, certainly coming in and making sure that nothing was lost. And I couldn't be happier than the work that they've done so far. I hear great things in the community. I hear great things from Mr. Mills on a regular basis. I hear great things from the staff as well who are out in the community. Mr. Gove talked about how supportive our staff is in that school. With a population or enrollment of 471, it's important that we meet the needs of our children and our students from an academic level, but our staff are meeting their needs at a social level as well, and that's a tremendous impact. I recall being in a school a couple of times previously, and it's a busy building. And people are on alert on a regular basis, and I think the work that you do and your staff do leads to the benefit of those children and builds for their success for future years. So I couldn't be any happier and more proud of the work that you're doing, and I appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee McDonald. Do I have any other comments or questions? Trustee McAllister.
Carrie and Ryan, I wonder if you could, I'm intrigued by your grade 6 co-op program, which I assume is somewhat different than, say, a secondary school co-op program. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, through you, Chair. So our co-ops, so basically with our grade 6 co-op program, the students do it once a week, and they're doing things throughout the school. So whether going into a kindergarten classroom, whether helping out the custodian throughout the building. So they're all assigned different spots to consistently do it over a period of time, and they're able to go out and be peer helpers with students or doing other tasks throughout the school to help out. So kind of changes the dynamic from the classroom out. And what the teachers are noticing is when learning skills that they're developing in the classroom, they're noticing some students that may have struggled, they're seeing them shine in other areas. So it's just giving more opportunities and different opportunities for students in our school, and the response has been good. We're right now going through a period where we're surveying the students that are being helped by our program, by the staff that are receiving the students, by the students themselves. So we're kind of collating that surveys right now, just to kind of measure, tweak it, move it forward. But it's about building community in our school and making connections between students. So, a kindergarten student seeing a grade 6 student now looks at them differently because it's the grade 6 student that sat and helped me at my center that day. So it's just building community, it's creating positive relationships in our school, and we've had really good feedback from everyone involved in it. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. Trustee Bill McPherson.
Thank you, through the chair. One common thread through most of these presentations has been our math scores. We've also heard a fairly common thread of the remedial actions that are being taken by the individual schools. I guess it's the farmer coming out in me that you're sowing something right now with your strategies. at what point do you expect to see the results of that work? Through the chair.
Take that? Sure. Through the chair. In speaking with the teachers this year, where I came at cycle 3, and the results we're seeing are pretty encouraging. So in saying that, do we expect to see a 20% jump in achievement? No. But what we're hoping for is maybe a 5% jump. So if we can move 7 to 10 kids along this year in terms of our focus students, that would be a big jump for us. And speaking with Mike Young from EQAO last year, 5% is a big jump up. So that's our goal for this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Trustee Kirkmer?
Through you, Chair. Thank you, gentlemen. Good presentation. I was wondering, Trustee McDonald mentioned that he used to be chair of Parent Council. I'm just curious as to what the Parent Council is like now. Are you getting a good turnout of parents? I know you have a lot of different nationalities in your community, but I'm just curious about the Parent Council of today.
Yeah, we do have 3 gentlemen that are in our parent council this year. We've met regularly through the year. We're working on a couple of projects that we have on the go. We're kind of working through some things with either connecting it to the co-op that we talked about, potentially a community garden. We've also talked about potentially doing a family coding night as well with our parent council. So we're kind of working through those kind of projects right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Bill McPherson?
Second time around from 8th through the chair. I don't see a mention of your spec ed students in your report. Are you an inclusive learning environment? What strategy do you use for dealing with children with special needs?
Through you, Chair. Our strategies stem from our SST meetings, which is the core of planning for individualities. We have a great building, so we have access to lots of spaces. We have a sensory room. Learning spaces are important at Central, so learning happens in the classroom, but providing breaks and opportunities for students in other areas of the school are helpful as well. So it all comes down to an individual education plan that is unique to the student. It's the overall supports. It's access to our sensory room. We have a breakout room that's like a yoga room for DPA, daily physical activity, for yoga in there. Staff have access it for different things for different students. We have a group that just goes in there to read on the yoga balls, just for different space with students. It's a collaborative effort. We have a strong LRT team, a resource team, and it stems from getting together as a staff at our SSTs, developing strong IEPs to support our students, so that we can have everyone included in everything we do at Central.
Okay.
Thank you. Director?
Mr. Chair, through you, I wanted to just build on the trustees' comments on slide 5. The school has taken some significant steps to look at social emotional learning, and I know that from a visit that Superintendent Mills and I had late last fall, it is an integrated part of the school's program, and I think that's where the school should be lauded, which is it's for all students, including students with special learning needs. And because of that, I think the school, its entire school community and the students in general, obviously, will benefit from that. And when I see a slide like that and I see the Mind Masters focus and I see the focus on zones of regulation, that tells me that the school is really trying to work on norms of interacting that are positive and proactive. And I do think that the school should be lauded for that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Comment? One more, Trustee Bill McPherson. You're on a roll tonight.
Okay, no, it's just when we built Central Public School, David alluded to it in the part of the old building was kept. I live in the far western corner, so I have never actually been by the school. How do the students utilize that space behind the glass? I believe it's the library. Through the chair.
So through you, Chair, it is our library, so it is so basically for us at Central too, providing choices for students. So at recess time, that becomes our alternative recess spot to either have games or something low key for students that want a break from outside or provides it. It is a learning commons throughout the school. It is a learning hub for us where we host all our meetings, and the students go in there and use it regularly. Classes have the opportunity to go in there and use the space throughout the day, so it's a well-used space in our school.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I do know, just to capitalize on what you were saying, I was down at that school a few years ago, and it's a credit to Superintendent Hobbs and your team that when you take a school and put them together, you still have a respect for what was there before, and I know that's happened in some of the other schools as well. So I think it's noticeable, and it's certainly the community, I'm sure, appreciate it. So thanks, Superintendent Hobbs, for paying attention to those kind of things, because they're important. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your presentation. Safe travels tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our next item. Coming soon will be the Community Planning and Partnership Annual Meetings. We feel that it was important that the trustees become aware of, again, what the purpose of these meetings are and get an overview from Superintendent Dawes as to what is going to be presented at that particular time. This is an ongoing process, and we're moving at that time of the year, so it's just, I think it's wise that all the trustees become fully aware as to what is going to be happening in June. And it's over to Superintendent Dawes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the Board of Trustees for this opportunity to bring you up to speed, as you've suggested, with our upcoming CPP meetings, CPP standing for Community Planning and Partnership Meetings. Glad to have with me at the table our Manager of Planning, Sarah Crawford, who over the years has played a vital role in helping to organize and provide the information for these important meetings. So thank you, Sarah. Chair, as the board's aware, of course, we have a mission, and that mission is we prepare all students for a successful life. And a strong working relationship with our community partners is, of course, a vital component of this overall mission of the board. So I'm pleased to have this opportunity to talk a bit more about the CPP meetings. Through the presentation, what I'd like to do is demonstrate that the community planning and partnership area is evolving. We've established a very good foundation, but we want to use this foundation now to align further with the strategic direction of the board. And I also want to be able to share with you tonight, as you've suggested, some of the highlights of information that we intend to bring to these two meetings. But again, what I really want the trustees to take away from this presentation is that we've evolved and we're into a new era on how we can find value from these meetings to move the strategic direction of the board further along. So, of course, engaging with local and learning communities is a key part of our board's strategic plan, not just for 2017 to 2020, but always. CREW is really the foundation on which system leaders can build capacity in others to meet the needs of students, staff, and parents. But through CREW, we also have an opportunity to make a deeper connection with our communities and other stakeholders. So through a stronger relationship with our community partners, we can really dig into the four components of CREW. How do we create relationships with our community partners that build on a strong collaborative environment? How can we use our resources as best possible with the help of our community partners to create careful management of our resources? How can we work with our community partners to develop strong educational programs that are relevant to the communities that we serve? And of course, the topic of wellness is always on our mind, and our community partners have a role to play in helping us to build caring and supportive environments for our students. So it's with that foundation of CREW that we're trying to take where we've gotten so far and move it even further to build that strong relationship that's going to take us even further through the strategic direction of the board. So what does the annual CPP meetings look like, and what does this all mean as it relates to the larger context of the strategic direction of the board? Well, let me talk, if I could, a bit about the foundation that got us this far, and that revolves around Policy 4002, which trustees will recall is our facility collaboration policy. Policy 4002 was adopted by the board in November 2015. And trustees may recall that we were required to develop that policy to align with the ministry's community planning and partnership guidelines, which we call the CPPG. The guidelines have been needed to be followed by every school board across Ontario, and the intention behind the guidelines and the policies that boards had to develop in alignment with the CPPG was to build stronger relationships with our community partners. And specifically around 4002, that interpretation has been quite restricted so far. It speaks to the need for sharing planning information, but it's really been more in these early stages related to opportunities for leasing school space. So I want to build on 4002 and then let you know how we're taking that further. And of course, a big part of 4002 is providing some clarity around the conditions in which leasing arrangements would be considered by the board. So trustees may be aware that in the policy, there's specific reference to proposals that are fully cost recoverable, beneficial to students, appropriate for the school setting, and support the board's student achievement strategies and take into consideration the health and safety of students. Those conditions are stated upright in our policy 4002. And of course, in 4002, there's also reference to the need for the public meetings, again, as a requirement through the CPPG, the Community Planning and Partnership Guidelines. In our policy 4002, it of course states that the board will hold at least one public meeting a year to discuss the board's capital plan or the details of any school deemed eligible for facility collaboration. Facility collaboration in this context being a fancy word or two for the leasing of school space. We're also expected and want to, at these meetings, bring relevant planning information for sharing. And sharing is a two-way street. We want to be able to provide information to our community partners, but we also want to provide through the meetings the context and the opportunity to receive information from them about what they're seeing about trends in the communities that we can work together with them to build a stronger relationship. And to date, I'm quite happy to say that I feel we've made some good progress through 4002. We have an online application process, but I want to say that cautiously because it's not a really strict cold process. Certainly, our community partners or anybody interested in leasing school space has the opportunity to go online and fill out our application form, but really most, if not all, of those applications are followed quite quickly with a phone call or a conversation so that we can get clarity about what the intentions are from our potential partners. This year, for example, we've received 16 online inquiries. What that has tended to lead to is a smaller number of actual meetings, because when we call people back, we find out maybe they don't quite understand what the policy is all about or its application. Once we engage in those conversations, if necessary, we're then happy to meet with our community partners to go into further detail about what their needs are so that we can then assess the full implications from a cost and operational perspective. So this year, I'm pleased to announce that we have had meetings with Mississippi Mills, with North-South Dundas, and with Lanark County. We did create, through this process, temporary library space at Pakenham School in the spring of 2017, and we're currently in conversation with Lanark County about the possibility of leasing school space for archival purposes. But again, as I've noted at the bottom of this particular slide, to date, Policy 4002 has generally been used by the municipalities to explore the possibility of leasing surplus space in schools for archival purposes, which is a very good thing. But we now want to take that foundation and see if we can move it a little further along into a deeper meaning as it relates to partnership opportunities. And so that leads us into the area of the Director's Work Plan and UCDSB Policy 423. Now, of course, we have the Director's Work Plan, and that work has been quite substantial this past year. There are 4 goals, of course, that are attached with the Director's Work Plan. The first goal is to increase our graduation rate by 2% this year. The second goal is to increase staff that feel value and that there's good communication across the board. The third goal is to increase students' ability to deal with stress. So on one level, we could suggest that a strong relationship with our community partners could certainly assist in those 3 critical areas of the Director's Work Plan. But I'd also like to point out that really it's Goal 4 that provides the biggest opportunity in this respect, because Goal 4 is specific to connecting with community stakeholders. So we're really looking forward this year when we have the CPP meetings on being able to inform our community partners of the Director's Work Plan, of the work that we're doing specific to Work Plan Goal 4, and building again on the foundation of Policy 4002 to now inform and delve into the area of the Director's Work Plan as an assist to this process. The other change that we've got this year that we didn't have last year and in other meetings is policy 423. And trustees may recall 423 is our partnerships, sponsorships, and/or cooperative ventures policy. And this policy was revised by the board just last November 2017. And so on the one hand, since the last CPP meetings in June 2017, we've had the development of the director's work plan, and now again an update of policy 423. And the whole opportunity around 423 is again to dig deeper into what we mean by partnerships, sponsorships, and cooperative ventures, as opposed to just a strict interpretation of using surplus space for leasing purposes. And so in the policy 423, it's identified that a partnership or cooperative venture is a mutually beneficial relationship of a significant duration based upon similar values in which there is an exchange of human, intellectual, or material resources. What a much more powerful concept that is around the dialogue that we can now take to board in the conversations that we'll be having with the community partners. Policy 423 also specifies a sponsorship, which is a formal and clearly defined monetary relationship that is established to support a specific program or purposes of the Upper Canada District School Board. Very helpful indeed. There's also clarification in Policy 423 about the role of the Board of Trustees through the Director of Education. So again, deepening that relationship will require some responsibilities from this table. It's much more than just a staff effort. It's a really trustee-driven process as well. So with that foundation, if I could now, I'd like to take you through a bit more information specific to the meetings themselves, when we're going to have them, and some of the information that we would like to share in alignment, again, with 4002, but taking it deeper through the Director's Work Plan. So we have 2 meetings scheduled. Similar as we've done in previous years, we'd like to have one meeting in the eastern part of our board and another meeting in the western part of our board. It makes it easier for the community partners to attend those particular meetings as they relate to their geographical proximity. The first meeting we'll be holding is on June 6th, 1 to 3 p.m. at General Vanier site in Cornwall. And the second meeting in the western part of our board will be held on June the 8th, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. I did get that right. North Grenville Municipal Center, Kemptville. And we have specified, again, on the invitation for this year's meetings at the bottom of the slide, we hope that municipal representatives would share with us at these sessions their current priorities and where there may be potential opportunities to further conversations. But again, this is but one small step in a larger process to engage in that dialogue more fulsomely. At the meetings, we've tended, as required through our own policy and the guidelines, to share planning information. And so this year will be information similar to what we've shared in previous meetings. Let me start, if I could, with, you may be familiar with this table, which shows historical preschool and school-age population across our jurisdiction. When I've tended to show this in earlier years, you've tended to see a decline in the area of population. Happy to inform trustees, and you've heard this from me more recently, that our population overall has now stabilized due to that aging population of the echo boom. So we can see from the top line, our preschool age population, this is population resident to the Upper Canada District School Board, has really stabilized over the last 5-year period. Similar look on the elementary aged 4 to 13 population. When you look at the age 14 to 17 population, it would appear that we've got a decline, and that's true. There has been a decline if you go back as far as 2012, but if you look at the last 2 or 3 years, you can see that we've seen a stabilization generally in our secondary age population panel as well. So very good news from a population perspective, which of course drives our enrollments. And our enrollments are what we're showing on this table, which we'll be sharing at the meetings. This is a view of Upper Canada District School Board system elementary enrollments, 2014 to 2017 historical, and 2018 to 2027 what we're projecting longer term. And so you can see on the left side that increase that we've seen on the elementary panel over the last 3 years, actually 274 students increase from 2015 to 2017, and then a nice flattening with slight increase over the longer period. But again, the good news on this slide is that evening out of our elementary enrollments overall. Secondary side, if you look to the far left, you'll see that decline that we've been witnessing over the past 10 years now. That's showing 2014 to 2017 as actuals, but again, that's the tail end of the secondary decline, and we now see an evening out projected with a slight increase up to 2023 and then evening out again. But again, same kind of story as the elementary panel, a general flattening out of our overall enrollments projected on the secondary panel. We've established, I think, a very good working relationship with the planning staff at each of our municipalities, and they share with us regularly information pertaining to housing starts. That's what this table shows. It's historical total housing starts broken down by the different counties across our board. I think maybe a key note on this one is in the year 2010, which was a peak year of 1,934 units. But over the last 3 years, stabilization of overall units constructed across our region between 1,380 and 1,350 housing units overall. We know that overall housing, we're interested in keeping track of it. It hasn't resulted in a significant increase in overall enrollments, but we do like to look at it on an area-by-area basis, and our planning staff at the municipalities help us with this information. We have historical data on this up to 2015, but we're very close to updating that for the 2016 year. This table is a highlight of our overall system enrollment and space usage. There's an acronym in here that I want to clarify, OTG. OTG stands for on-the-ground capacity. It's just a term that the ministry uses to identify how much theoretical space is available in any particular school building. And that's done by taking classroom loadings and then adding up the number of classrooms in that school to provide an overall capacity figure. So when you see that term OTG, that's what we're talking about. It's the total space available theoretically in that school based on the number of classrooms and the space loadings that are accorded to each of those classrooms. So you can see over on the far right, we've got some projected numbers there. The overall space availability, if you were to add up all of the classrooms across all of our schools, is 34,945 projected for next year. Somewhat peculiarly, I'm going to be showing how space relates to enrollment. And we do have surplus space, but we also have some areas of our boards where we require portable classrooms. So we have a total projected portable classroom allocation next year of 62. Our overall elementary head count, 17,875. Secondary enrollment head count projected 8,127 for a total of 26,002. So if you take our overall enrollment and look at that as a percentage of overall space availability, that comes out at 74.4%. In other words, we're projecting that we're using 74.4% of the total space theoretically that's available in all of our schools. And that graph that I just shared with you, or that table that I just shared with you, if we show it graphically, that's what we're aiming at here. Up at the top is the total pupil places that are available in the way of space in our board. Okay, so the total OTG shown historically from 2014 and then projected out to 2027. The line below that is our total secondary and elementary enrollment combined, again, historically from 2014, and then projected out to 2027. So that space in the middle is the potential availability of space, and really for our board represents the opportunity that we've got going into these discussions through our CPP and other opportunities to share information as to how we can work with our community partners to make clear how that space could be used in very valuable ways to address learning opportunities for students. Facility Collaboration Policy 4002, of course, identifies several criteria that schools need to fall into so that we can demonstrate to our community partners where space would be available. So there are two criteria that a school would need to fall under, actually just one of the two, so that we would then identify those particular schools as having surplus space. The first criteria is a utilization rate of less than 60% for the last 2 years, so utilization rate being enrollment as a percentage of total space availability in the school. So if a school has a utilization rate of less than 60% for the last 2 years, we're obligated to make that information available to our community partners. Or the second criteria is 200 or more unused pupil places. So when we take those criteria and we apply those on a school-by-school basis, we can see the breakdown. These are for the schools in the eastern part of our jurisdiction. We tend to share both, all parts of our board at the meetings, but again, specific to our eastern area schools, I won't go through each one, but these are the different schools and the space availability in each of those schools. And similarly, here's a table that shows a breakdown on a school-by-school basis from that criteria in Policy 4002 for schools located in the western part of our jurisdiction. The CPP meetings also provide us an opportunity to inform our community partners about the facility projects that we've been undertaking since we last met, and facility projects that are in the works. So we would like to be able, and looking forward to informing our community partners of the work that's been happening with the Kemptville Public School, which was completed, of course, in September 2017, and again inform our partners of ongoing additions and renovations as they relate to Toniata Commonwealth School, the Cornwall Collegiate Project, Roxmore, and North Grenville District High School in the North Grenville family. And of course, important to let our community partners know that our board has been blessed this year with as much as $60 million in ministry capital improvements since June 2017. And of course, that's a good news for our communities and the construction work that provides. We've tended also at the CPP meetings to talk a bit about Community Hub, but I'll stress a bit, because we still are, like most boards across Ontario, I think, looking for some clarification from the ministry about how we might be able to take advantage of the Hub initiative. But the idea itself is very good. I mean, a Community Hub is an opportunity to provide central access point for a range of needed health and social services, along with cultural, recreational, and green spaces to nourish community life. So again, an opportunity, starting with CPP, to see if there are potential areas in our board where we could go even beyond partnerships and start looking at a potential hub opportunity. Another thing we'd like to talk about at the CPP meetings is where we're at with respect to daycare spaces. I would point out at the meetings we've tended to be joined by Judy Kaiser, who tends to be involved in this particular part of the presentation. Peter Bosch, our manager of facilities, has also been present often to talk about facility upgrades. If Judy was here, she might be able to give you a bit more information on this one. This is maybe perhaps a bit of a starting point, but our current daycare state is that we have 44 before and after daycare programs. There are 14 full-time daycare locations across our board, and we have 6 Ontario early years centers, full-time and part-time. There are some childcare additions that are being planned for right now at Cambridge, Roxmore, Winchester, the new Brockville School, and Kemptville Public School. Another key part of the presentation, and this information I think was provided in the landing page of this presentation, is reference to the amount of availability in space that we make to our communities for after hours community use of schools. And I think this is information that our board can be very, very proud of. Our community organizations access our schools after hours for a wide range of community uses. And from this information, you can see that no fewer than 111,494 total community use hours have been used, and this is just in 2017 to 18, still in progress. And we show a historical view of the amount of community use that is happening across our boards, and a very high approval rate as well. 96.94 of our applications for community use of schools after hours have been approved this year. And this is all available for our community uses through an online application process, which we found has been working very, very well. And getting close to the end, an opportunity through the CPP meetings to also remind folks of our school information profiles. We started to have these available last year, and want to take the opportunity to remind our community partners that there's a wealth of information available on these profiles, and they're accessible through the board's main website. If you go on there, you'll find valuable information as it relates to enrollment profiles, facility profiles. There's even a transportation profile area, community demographics. So for anybody wanting to know more about what the community makeup of our school areas are, simply go on those tips and you'll find that information at your disposal. So again, Chair, through you, appreciate this opportunity to provide more information to the board about our preparations for the meetings, and hope you can see that we're proud about the progress we've made and looking forward to moving this along even further. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Dawes. It certainly gives us an understanding of what's going to be happening at those meetings. I'm going to open up the floor to comments or questions. Trustee Wendy McPherson.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to understand a little bit more with regards to the some of the municipalities that you want to meet with. Some of them already have set up education committees. And like I know North Glengarry has. Have any of the other communities done something to that effect also?
Through you, Chair, maybe I could get some clarification on...
Back when we were doing the PARs and everything else, the municipalities organized committees to help the parents and the organizations at schools to save schools. And a number of them, I know North Glengarry still has, theirs is active with regards to...
Through you, Chair, certainly appreciate that information. The CPP meetings to date haven't made that available to us, but through the director's work plan, we're really making a definitive effort now to get a deeper understanding of where these different meetings are taking place, so that we can certainly be represented and get the information back we need to build on those relationships. So it's certainly a work in progress, yes.
Yeah, and I mean, just a comment, but it would be nice to have the trustees of their wards on those committees if they're organizing them. But do I have another issue? Just to help me clarify, the CCP meetings, what will they look like? Are we inviting the public to them, or is it just the municipal groups? But we're going all out.
Through you, Chair, through the guidelines in our own policy, there's reference to what we call a notification list. And so we follow the specifications of the guidelines on how that notification list has been put together. And it tends to be staff from municipalities and different identified community partners. However, I would like to specify that they are open in public meetings, and so anybody's free to attend that would like to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Trustee Swan.
When we go to the page with historical housing starts, I know I had a meeting back last year with the director, the chair, you, Jeff, and Mr. Dawes. And Grenville is one of the fastest growing communities in Ontario. And seeing it lumped in with Leeds and Grenville for community housing starts, can we do in the next update a division between Leeds and Grenville? Because Grenville's going up and up and up. And I think this really, it's a day late and a dollar short for one school, but in the future, I think if we could break this down just to show the difference in the starts between Leeds and Grenville, because Leeds is a huge area, whereas I'm thinking specifically North Grenville, but even if it's north and south, that's more, to give more of a breakdown.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Swan. I'm going to turn this over to Sarah Crawford.
Through you, Chair. We certainly can break down each of the counties into the individual municipalities. In fact, right now we're in the process of updating 2016, 17, and 18 to date with each of them. So that's what we do track. It's just we consolidated it for that representation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that would be important to see, because you have the data anyway, so to see a more concise breakdown would be great.
Thank you very much, Trustee Swan. Trustee Bill McPherson, and then Trustee McAllister.
Thank you. Through the chair. I realize that the intent of these meetings is for staff to meet with staff. However, is there anything to preclude trustees attending the local session. And you can expect that some of the local politicians will be there as well. I personally feel as a trustee that if there are elected representatives of the municipalities present, that there should be at least some accommodation or acknowledgement that trustees would be interested in sitting in on these meetings.
I'm going to turn it over to the director. That became very clear last year to us, that often in municipalities that there's a slight blur between the governance and the operational line, and as a result of that, the political voice is often wanting to be heard. And we recognize that, and I'll give it over to the director in a moment, but I also agree that if politicians are there on one side, we certainly should be represented. Director.
Mr. Chair, through you, not much more to add except to say that we also as staff have seen that trend where over the last 2 years we see a more diverse group who's attending. It was initially that the political leadership of the individual municipalities received the invitation and that they had passed that down to their administration, and last year that had started to change with the presence of administration and some political representatives. To the trustees' question specifically, there is nothing that would prevent any member of the board, if they were interested in attending the meetings, to be in attendance at the meetings.
Okay. Trustee McAllister.
I too want to clarify that particular point, and I'm going to ask it in perhaps a different way, but there are two levels of community partners. There's the administrative level, and our political people, our mayors and whatnot. I know that you mentioned your notification. Are the mayors being specifically invited?
Through you, Chair. Through our notification list, we have tended to direct that to the Chief Administrative Officer of each organization, but certainly have made it clear that they're more than welcome to invite political parties if they would choose to do so, certainly. And that has been, in fact, quite clear in the representation that we've seen at previous meetings with staff being joined by their elected officials.
I'm not sure if I got my answer.
Okay.
Are you specifically inviting the mayors?
In the letter that we've sent out through you, Chair, not specifically. Those letters have tended to go to the Chief Administrative Officers.
I'll just go to the director first and then back to Trustee McAllister.
Mr. Chair, through you, the rationale is that the forum was designed for an exchange between staff who had specific duties for planning. We do know that locally elected officials have their own forum, which is their formal meetings, and so that would explain why the past practice has been to direct the information to the CAOs in the respective municipalities. We also learned in the last 2 years that the CAOs and their political leadership work very closely, and knowing the value of the meetings over the last 2 years, we suspect that would be flagged with individual elected leadership in the different municipalities by their administrative staff.
Thank you. Mr. McAllister.
Supplementary, I guess. I still think that the mayor should be invited directly. Nevertheless, these are community planning and partnership sessions. Are these sessions arranged such that there is a two-way flow of communication?
Through you, Chair.
From us to them and from them to us?
Through you, Chair. We've made it clear that it is intended as a sharing of information. I'll be honest, to date it's been more of a one-sided share. We've tended to provide more information than we're receiving back. That's why in the presentation I wanted to point out that we've again tried to emphasize that we would like to hear back from folks attending those sessions if they would be willing to do that with us. But again, I would like to again stress that we have developed, I think, a very good, strong working relationship with the staff in each of our municipalities. They know they can contact us if they have questions or comments about the information that we're sharing. But again, we would like to see these sessions grow a little bit more into a full understanding and application of sharing, truest meaning of the word, if possible.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair.
Yes, Trustee Swan?
I'm also kind of bouncing off Trustee McAllister here on this. The importance of sharing, of municipalities sharing their planning information with the board. It was kind of in the last letter. You may bring this if you wish. I have the letter, just not in front of me. But maybe we could stress the importance of sharing and why sharing their planning information with the board is important. Just a thought.
Thank you. Trustee Bill McPherson?
Thank you. I have two questions. During the last process, we managed to, so to speak, poke a stick in the hornet's nest by excluding the mayors from the invite. Assuming that there's a amicable line of communications between senior staff and Reeves or mayors is not necessarily a safe assumption. Could we not at least CC the Reeve and or mayor of the respective municipality to create a sense of awareness that this is happening? You don't necessarily have to make it specifically an invitation, because the last thing you want is to be smothered by 125 municipal politicians. Second question, and I'll just put it all out here at once. On your capital plans, I realize that we are simply naming the projects for which we have received approval. Is it not possible to share a kind of a wish list? Like, we are looking to the future, we have to. For instance, we're looking for an addition at Wellington to accommodate Maynard. Heaven forbid we ever get the money for a new PDCI. But, sorry. But there is a potential for down the road, where if we're going to be building a new school in community ABC, they need to know, in case they might be planning a new arena, a new library, something that is not necessarily on the radar screen, but it's like a wish list. This is what we would like to have in the future. We're not funded for it, but making them aware. And so, through the chair, that's the two questions. Thank you.
Are there more comments, right, in terms of, yeah, okay. So, noted. Okay. Trustee Cram.
Thank you, Chair. On slide 9, where you've, I think Trustee Swan alluded to it a little bit, where you've asked municipalities to bring some relevant information with them. How often do they share information with you, or is it just this particular annual meeting that we have?
Through you, Chair. I can give a couple of examples. For example, when we got into the discussions in Pakenham with the space at that school, there was a good sharing of information and different interpretations of school space. They were looking for clarification about the calculations, and so we were happy to provide that to them, and that took us down a very good, informative path. Another example I could bring to your attention is with North Grenville, where we've worked with municipal staff there to develop what we call pupil to housing yields. So we understand how many students we're getting from new housing starts. And we needed information from them as to housing, and they needed information from us as it related to enrollments. And they were appreciative, as we were, on sharing that particular information. So I think, again, what I've tried to stress through the presentation is although the CPP meetings are an important part of this overall, I think it's the relationships that we're building with the municipalities that are allowing us to move forward, so that, again, they know that they can call us if they want information, and we can call them. So it's deeper than just the meetings. Again, I'd like to stress, in a perfect world, I'd like to see a bit more of a robust sharing of information at the meetings, and we're working towards that, but I wouldn't want you to think that that's precluding us from getting the information that we need from the municipalities and vice versa.
Thank you. Trustee McDonald. Oh, sorry, you have a follow-up?
Yeah.
I apologize. Go ahead.
No problem, Chair. The other one is to dovetail with Trustee McPherson on the wish list. For example, I know that on our wish list, there's a rebuild for one of the schools that is in my area. Do the municipalities know about that wish list now? Is it brought to their attention, or the only way they find that is by asking?
Director.
Mr. Chair, through you, the public would know about the current wish list that the board submits in the fall to the ministry in terms of capital projects. And so that would be public knowledge, and Superintendent Hobbs in his update in the fall provided very much a robust view about what we've applied for, what we've received permission for, and what we continue to seek. So that information is out in the public domain, and we can provide people with references to that, Mr. Chair. Mm-hmm. We know that we do get feedback from the Ministry of Education when we make our capital plan proposals, and we get advice about what looks viable and what wouldn't be viable, and have to change that and then bring that back to the board each fall. So there is some shifting sands there. So I guess really the key point here is that the capital plans generated by the board that is submitted to the ministry is annualized versus maybe a longer range plan that some people might be accustomed to.
Thank you. Trustee McDonald.
Thank you. I think it's important for us to make sure that we understand the requirements of a CPP and come back to that. It has many hats and many focuses, as Superintendent Dawes has pointed out tonight. It's going from the requirement of having that formalized meeting, encompassing some of our policies about collaboration and partnerships and sharing, and then also including that community hub piece. And really, we need to focus on the community partnership piece. We're having these meetings so that we can go to the communities and talk about what are the ways can we, as partners, meet the needs of our citizens. We have to put the baseline data in place. Here's what we have. So let's not be scared because we're saying that we have this much empty space. The reality is that we do have empty space, but if there's an opportunity for us to work together to meet the needs of our citizens, how can we do that? Is there a need in a particular community? And I think that's the main focus and the main thrust is that we do have to have that two-way communication. It's important for us to share what we know, but it's important for municipalities to share what they know as well. I think they're the ones who may have a better idea of where the voids or where the gaps are in their communities. We have an understanding of where the voids and gaps are for our kids, but outside K to 12, sometimes we may not know that. So I think that's the focus, and I think the attention that we need to pay to this. The purpose behind it, and it may be open and it may have the opportunity for others to attend, is really to ensure that staff have that conversation. And as Phil said, there have been several conversations since this has taken place. There is a requirement to have a formalized process, at least on an annual basis, but it has allowed us to have further conversations and has allowed us to create those opportunities to know who people are, and for them to know who our people are. And I think there's a positive side to this as opposed to the fear of potentially what might be, as opposed to what's the positive. And I think we need to focus on that when we go into these meetings and make sure that our communities are aware that the positive is that we have something that you may need. And if we can share that space and meet the needs of our citizens, then let's find a way to do that. And I think that's the thing that we need to be pushing forward, and that's really the intention of what the ministry got around to putting the CPP and community hubs and those initiatives in place. So, I think the unfortunate piece that came away last year is that people looked at it as something that was tied into another process. Well, not necessarily. This is a process entirely on its own. It's a process that really is there to try and create that two-way dialogue and make sure that we have those conversations on a regular basis. So I like the process. I think it's important that we continue to do that, and I'm happy to hear of the good things that have happened thus far. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Kartner.
Thank you, Chair. In slide number 6, when you talk about the purpose of the CPP meetings, you talk about opportunities to share with our municipalities and the agencies about facilities available. In your letters of invite, do you invite our community partners that are in the form of agencies, or is it just the municipalities?
Through you, Chair. It's quite a wide range, and it does include our different community agencies. And I would be hesitant to try and explain those to you. It's complicated, but yeah, they're included in that notification list, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Through you, Chair.
Yes, Trustee Swan.
This did come up, and I'd just like to know, I would really like to see the mayors CC'd on this. I know people thought it was tied to another process, or Vice Chair McDonald made a comment or alluded to it, but it was tied to another process, and many of the mayors weren't aware of it at the meetings, or said they weren't aware of the meetings. The letters did go to the municipalities. I know that. I verified that. But I think CCing the mayors is very important because they know the agencies as well as their CAOs, and I'm just wondering if we need a motion to CC the mayors, or we can be assured that the mayors will be CC'd on this, or if other trustees want the mayors to be CC'd. I think it's a very important piece of this sharing and collaborating puzzle.
Thank you, Trustee Sloan. I think it's been noted right now. I'll do a follow-up with the director on this, and we'll continue this conversation for sure. But I think it's been brought up by several trustees as a concern, so it's certainly been noted. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Superintendent Dawes, thank you very much.
And Cooperative.
Pardon me?
And Sarah. And Sarah.
And Sarah, thank you very much. I was going to say that.
You were, eh?
Thank you, Sarah. Always nice to have you at the table. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item, and I believe I'm going to turn this over to our student trustee, Marcia Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendents. I have a very short report tonight. The first item I'm going to talk about was the elections held on the April 20th meeting of Student Senate. We elected a 2018-19 student trustee, Bushra Kada, I believe I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She is a student at Brockville Collegiate Institute, and I have faith that she will continue to represent the students of UCDSB very well. I've met with her once already, and we talked about where she envisions the Senate going. I'm very hopeful for Senate next year. The next agenda item, or the next item in my little presentation, is OSTA ECO. We will be having a annual general meeting in Toronto in 2 weeks from now. Myself and Bushra will be attending, and I would like to thank the board for their support of OSTA. A lot of incoming student trustees don't get the chance to attend AGM, so having the finances there to send our incoming is very appreciated. And then the last point on my report is the Student Senate Handbook. The team working on the Student Senate Handbook had a very long and productive conversation with Senate on the April 20th meeting. We voted to make sure that the Senate had confidence in the project, and I've continued the discussion with the senators as well as 3 extra senators that are now on the team, and we're finalizing what our next steps should be, and hopefully we'll be talking with the senior staff and administration, of the board. So thank you.
Thank you. Again, Bushra, thank you very much for being here. We welcomed you to the last meeting, and those flowers still holding up okay? Just thought I'd ask. No, well, it's always nice to have you here, and it'll be wonderful to have you at the table when Marshall finishes his term. Okay, well, thank you. Any comments or questions to our student trustee? Thank you. Moving on to the next item, it's the Upper Canada District School Board Policy Revision, Policy 135, dealing with First Nations, Métis, Inuit volunteer self-identification, or voluntary self-identification. I'm going to start off with a motion. The motion is that the Upper Canada District School Board approve the recommended revisions to its Policy 135, First Nation, Métis, and Inuit voluntary self-identification as presented May the 9th, 2018. Do I have a mover? Trustee McDonald, seconded by Trustee Bill McPherson, and I'll turn this over to the Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Trustees, this evening in front of your screen is a report regarding Policy 135, First Nation, Métis, and Inuit voluntary self-identification, as the Chair has mentioned. Staff brings that to you this evening for not a change in terms of the content of the policy. Members of the board may be reminded that that this policy came out of a move provincially for all district school boards to have an opportunity to create a self-identification policy for Indigenous peoples, so that data could be collected with regards to who the school district was serving, and then secondly, how to use that information to inform staff development and providing resources to the school district in school that supports culturally responsive education and culturally responsive pedagogy. So members of the board, I'm sure are aware, Mr. Chair, that nomenclature and terminology changes as people become more clear in their dialogue about how to be self-identified or how to properly refer to people, nations, and communities. And so tonight, staff brings to you really not a change in the content of the policy, but content in the terminology that essentially is to revise the policy so it would strike out the term of First Nation, Métis, and Inuit, and instead insert the term Indigenous. And the reason for that is twofold. As you'll note in the staff report, the province has gone in that direction as well, renaming and relabeling anything that was First Nation, Métis, Inuit oriented to now being Indigenous. There are a number of different terminologies that can be used, and staff provide you with some details about that in the report. However, I think that it would be contingent upon the board to align its nomenclature and its terminology with both what the provincial government is using and also to reflect what is the current parlance in terms of these policies and procedures in the public domain. So, Mr. Chair, that was change number one. Change number two is that staff also wanted to make sure that the policy could be clarified in its title, that it's about student voluntary self-identification and not non-students. And so we thought that that was an important clarification. That is who we asked that would self-identify in our schools, and not non-students. And we also thought that that clarification would also be helpful for the general public to have a reference point. So I'll turn it back over to you, sir.
Thank you, Director. So I have a motion on the table. Do I have any comments or questions?
Just a comment, Chair. In light of the Truth and Reconciliation +3 sessions that have been held in our board at Pineview and in Maxwell, I believe, I think it's imperative that we make these kind of changes, and it's rather fitting that we do so now.
Okay. Thank you. So I have a motion on the table, moved by Trustee David McDonald, seconded by Trustee Bill McPherson, that the Upper Canada District School Board approve the recommended revision to its Policy 135, First Nation, Métis, and Inuit voluntary self-identification as presented May the 9th, 2018. I'll ask you to cast your votes, please. Trustee Cartner?
Yeah, I voted yes.
And Trustee Swan? Thank you. That carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Director. Moving on to the next items. The Director of Education's Award of Merit. Again, I'll turn this over to our Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, The board has received several reports this year about the quarterly nominations received and the recipients as a result of those nominations being brought forward and then being screened against the criteria for the award. This is a very uplifting opportunity that we all have as a staff, because we actually get a chance to speak about excellence, not just every day, but in a public domain that's being live streamed and also shared with our community and our general public. These are not easy decisions by a long shot, but what they are is a real confidence booster that people expect that we have the very best personnel serving our children and our schools in the district, and there is compelling evidence each time that the request for nominations comes forward that, in fact, we do have such people. So this evening, Mr. Chair, this is our last call for recipients for this current school year, 17-18, and I'm delighted to advise you that we have 4 recipients for the Spring Award, which will be awarded in the very near future at our recognition celebration in June. We have Lindsay House, who's a teacher at Glengarry District High School, and Lindsay is acknowledged as a teacher who always tries her best to engage all students, and she's always striving to enrich the curriculum. She's known as a very active community member, and also has been present in supporting students at the provincial skills competition. So we congratulate Lindsay for her contribution and her nomination from her peers. We also have Lindsay Jane Castleman, who's a teacher at Pineview Public School, and the nominators for Lindsay had said that she is a constant source of inspiration and motivation, not just to her students, but to her peers and to the community. And it sounds like that Lindsay sets the bar for what is good instruction at Pineview Public School. As a matter of fact, her nominators say that her name is consistently being said in classrooms, in school hallways, in the staff room about what would Lindsay do. So when I hear about that, that's obviously an influential spirit and a person very worthy of this award. We also have Mr. Ryan Metcalf, and Ryan is one of our IT technicians who provides support out of the Frankville office in our board. And Ryan is acknowledged as being a person who solves challenges consistently in a better than hoped for manner. So that says to me that meeting people's needs beyond their expectations. Also mentions how Mr. Metcalf is his service-oriented approach helps to provide a service that is going beyond people's expectation, solves our own issues, and always shows concern for the students when he's working on student devices as well, and providing support when there's a breakdown or a glitch. And lastly, which is always exciting to hear, how a person of that background and experience is always a welcome presence at any place where he's doing his work. So we congratulate Mr. Metcalf for his service and for his nomination, and having committed to his work in that level and in that manner. And then lastly, we have Chris Wiley, teacher at Perth District Collegiate Institute, and Mr. Wiley's nominator had indicated that his level of organization, excellence in materials produced, and timeliness in his work attests to the numerous hours he spends outside of work, out of the workday, and when he is preparing. He's also well connected to students. He's always ready to lend an ear when they have needs, encourages them to strive for it to be their best. So we congratulate Mr. Wiley as well, and we're very proud of his contribution and his service to his students and to the school. So, Mr. Chair, those are our 4 recipients for the spring of 2018, and we congratulate all the nominees who were brought forward to the senior staff's attention, but particularly we celebrate these 4 people and their accomplishments.
Thank you very much, Director, for bringing that to our attention. We're very proud of those. I know I speak on behalf of all the trustees, so thank you.
Thank you.
Director David McDonald, I'm going to turn this over to you to report from Ops Squad.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to bring to trustees' attention, I did highlight at a very high level last meeting some of the changes that were taking place, but around OPSPA priorities. So we would have had some opportunity through the regional meeting to have input on OPSPA priorities. And you see the list before you, it is quite extensive. There are priority areas, and then there's the areas of focus. My general comment to OPSPA has been it's too much. How do we expect to do it all? However, I'm the lone voice sometimes that does say that. So we attempt to do it all. We attempt to do as much as possible. The main change that's moving forward, though, is a transition of the whole child in new generation education now being called the whole child and student well-being for today and tomorrow. So that'll encompass a couple of previously areas of emphasis and or priority, and those areas of emphasis under one umbrella. There is a slight name change as well for trustees in here, and it's trustees as leaders in public education. So not a lot of other changes associated to that. A lot of the work that takes place around the areas of emphasis is done at a executive level of OPSPA, and they'll do that over the course of the summer. So this information will be coming forward, and it will be part of our AGM in June. And then the actual work of the executive to provide some further direction to administration of OPSPA will take place over the course of the summer. So more of an information sharing with trustees tonight, Mr. Chair, and just re-emphasize that the AGM is coming up in a couple of weeks, and it is taking place in Niagara Falls on May 30th, 1st and 2nd. I got the dates right this time.
All right.
With the help of Vice Chair Kartner.
Thank you. Any comments or questions regarding the report? Thank you very much, Trustee McDonald, for that. And we're all looking forward to the AGM. Director, closing comments.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, as trustees and members of the public will know, it's Education Week in Ontario, but it's Education Week every week in the Upper Canada School Board, I'm happy to say. We wanted to make sure that our week this week was aligned with what the provincial emphasis was, which is on equity and inclusivity. I really do credit our senior staff for making sure that that has been a priority in all of our schools. And we have done a number of different things this week that helps to raise awareness about how students are experiencing a focus on equity and inclusivity in all of our schools. You heard from one of our trustees this evening, Mr. Chair, already that this is also the week of our annual Truth and Reconciliation Commission Days of Reflection, and I know that you're going to speak to that a bit more in your own comments this evening. I would like to mention as well, what we also try to do is to create opportunities where the school ensures that the community comes into the school and sees firsthand for themselves what's happening at our schools and in our classrooms. Now, that's not uncommon, and parents are always welcome, of course, and certainly our trustees have that open door for sure. But what is unique is that sometimes through special weeks like this, there are opportunities to create invitations, and parents do put extra time aside to join schools. I was at Russell Public School this morning in Trustee Karkner, Vice Chair Karkner's zone, and they were having their French cafe. And that's quite exciting because what was happening there was that students were also practicing their French language skills around a really fun kind of activity where every classroom was converted into a cafe. Parents were delighted about being served by their children, hoping that that's a kind of a practice or quality that will continue over this evening and into tomorrow. And there was over 440 croissants served between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. This morning at the school, plus free coffee. So if it wasn't for wonderful children, great learning, there was free coffee and free food, so it brought everybody in for the right reasons. That's just a small example of what's happening this week, and I do hope that trustees, if they have time available in their busy schedules, could drop by their local school and see what's being highlighted this week for Education Week. But we know that it's not just this week, it's every week, and we hope that the public and our trustees continue to nurture their relationship with their local school. So thank you.
Thank you, Director. I have about 5 different things I want to talk about tonight. Sometimes I don't have much, but tonight I do have about 5. I want to start off really with the board sending our condolences to the family of our MP Gordon Brown, who suddenly passed away. That was a shock to the community. He was a man who was dedicated and gave his all to all those that he represented. I know the community is heartbroken, and we as a board send our condolences. The second thing I want to mention was it was an add-on to a comment I made earlier, and I do know that Superintendent Hobbs is busy doing a lot of those, building and adding those things, but there was another gentleman by the name of Dave Pettipies who was also heavily involved in that, and if he was listening tonight, I'm sure he probably isn't, but if he was, he certainly wouldn't want his name not mentioned, so he was a big part of that Central School. Tomorrow night is our retirement celebration out in Equinell. That's always a great night because it's an opportunity for us as a board to recognize all of those that have worked so hard on behalf of our young people. And so I'm looking forward to that, and all the trustees that can get there. It's always a nice night. I know the people that are retiring appreciate it. And so, like I said, so many of them have given so many years, always in the best interest of our young people. So I'm looking forward to that. The director mentioned the comments that were made mentioned earlier, truth and reconciliation. That's come out 3. That's come out a couple times tonight. First, before I read a letter that came to me, and you folks have that, I want to thank the trustees who managed to get there. It's something I always like to go to, but because I was away in Prince Edward Island, dealing with working with the international situation, I really appreciate the trustees that went and represented our board. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for mentioning me. I hope you did.
I did.
Thank you. Okay, there. I appreciate that. And I know that Superintendent Barrett has been working very hard to pull that together. I've seen lots of pictures that are coming in on Twitter. I think our communication department is really starting to pay off and pay dividends in Twitter, because you almost see on an ongoing basis, almost minute to minute, what's happening in many of the things that we're doing. So that's absolutely wonderful to see, and I certainly appreciate the work that Superintendent Barrett and her team are doing to put this together. It's very, very important. We received a letter of May the 7th, and I just want to read it to you. And I know you have copies of it, but I want to read it simply because people in the public may not have it. And this is a letter that came from our Minister of Education. It says, "To the attendees of the Upper Canada District School Board 3rd Annual Truth and Reconciliation Gatherings, I'm very pleased to extend warm greetings to everyone attending the Upper Canada District School Board's Truth and Reconciliation Commission +3 gathering for reflection and renewal. Our government is committed to supporting greater awareness in public-funded schools about the history and legacy of Indigenous people in Ontario. As we know, this is critical to reconciliation. I being our minister, I firmly believe that all students, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, are enriched by learning about the histories, culture, perspectives, and contributions of the First Nation, Métis, and Inuits in Canada. I commend the Upper Canada District School Board for their commitment to improved relationships with Indigenous communities, their students and families, and their efforts to understand and promote what reconciliation means. The support of school boards, Indigenous partners, and key education stakeholders is vital to supporting the achievement of well-being of First Nation, Métis, and Inuit students. Building positive relationships by working in a spirit of mutual respect among the Ministry of Education, school boards, schools, educators, families, students, community organizations, and Indigenous partners is essential to the ongoing process of reconciliation. By working together, we can ensure that students have the support they need to reach their full potential. Please accept my best wishes for an engaging and successful gathering. Sincerely, Indira Nandu Harris, Minister of Education." So it's nice to be recognized, but we don't do it for recognition. We do it because it's the right thing. And I thank everyone that's involved for doing that. This takes me to my last comment. And as I mentioned earlier, I wasn't able to be a part of the TRC +3 because I was in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. And I was down there with Superintendent Mills, Principal Terry Gardner from Thousand Island Secondary School, and Andrew Scales. Andrew Scales is in the marketing part of our international program that we have for our students. And when you think about the work we are doing with our Indigenous people, it almost creates the culture that Upper Canada is all about, that welcomes everyone, including our international people, or our international students. And I can tell you that the experience of being down there, we made a presentation on Tuesday to a packed room, which is nice to see. It was packed right to the rafters. I sat back and was extremely proud. The CAPSI is the Canadian Association of Public Schools International. Those in attendance were everywhere from every province in Canada. Heavily involved were British Columbia, Nova Scotia, who are basically the pioneers in this, am I correct? And many school boards in between. We are a board that's highly respected. But what I did learn is that the entire program that we offer to our young people in the international areas and to our Indigenous people is all based on relationships. And this conference was purely, in my mind, relationships. And I have no hesitation to say that everyone that was there represented Upper Canada in a way that would make anyone at this table proud. Superintendent Mills, I've said it before, the relationships that you have built across Canada, and I dare say across the world, has served not only our board, but has served the young people who come here. So on behalf of the board, from what I saw, you make us very proud. Thank you very much for that. So it was a great trip. I'm a little tired. I don't think I need to see any more seafood for a while. But it was a wonderful conference, and I know it's going to pay off, because the benefit that we gain from having our international students join us is immeasurable, not only in terms of dollars and cents, because that's a very small part of why we do the business. It's the global recognition, the global acknowledgement of other people that I think is what it's all about, and our young people in our own system benefit from it. So thank you very much for inviting me down there. I felt really good being there, but I'm extremely proud of the work that we're doing. Okay, I believe that's just about all. I'm just going to ask my Vice Chair, Sarah Curtin, if you can just mention something about why we're all wearing green tonight. Could you do that for me?
Sure, I could. As you well know, this is Mental Health Week, and one of the things that we were asking our schools to do and our communities to do is to make others aware of Mental Health Week and the need for the knowledge being shared with our communities and with people, and especially for the people who suffer from mental illness. So today was chosen as the day to wear green. So I just sent out an alert this morning to everyone and asked them, and I probably should have sent it last night. I knew some of you were probably on the road by that time. And I appreciate the people who are able to find something green. And Trustee Cram, I know you're suffering with a long sleeve shirt, but it was worth it. Thank you very much, and for everyone involved. And for the others who couldn't, and someone is not here at the table tonight, I won't tell you what he told me, but one of our trustees is wearing green.
Yeah, right. And it wasn't me, but I was listening. As tired as I was, I found a green shirt.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you. The tie is more green than the shirt, but anyway, that's good.
Had to be in the suitcase. But thank you.
Jeremy should have special mention, because it's a good thing he's way down there. We wouldn't be able to see what that shirt he's got on.
Yes, Superintendent Hobbs, we noticed. Okay, I need a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board move into Committee of the Whole, moved by Trustee Richards, second by Trustee Wendy McPherson. Just a show of hands, please. Thank you very much. The second motion is that the Committee of the Whole move into private session May the 9th, 2018, moved by Trustee Bill McPherson, seconded by Trustee McAllister. Again, show of hands. Thank you very much. We're going to move into private session, and I know trustee Bill's